Here we're looking at a satellite image of part of the land of Israel. You see the Sea of Galilee up north. The Jordan River runs south into the Dead Sea. And what we've recently learned is that some coins were found out here about just over 20 miles northeast of Jerusalem in a place called Wadi Rashish. And nearby there, two coins, one from the time of towards the end of the Second Temple period and one nearly 70 years later. Both have Paleo-Hebrew inscriptions, and we're going to look at those today. Shalom, welcome to Rob on the Rock. It's always fun when there's new archaeological finds in the land of Israel that give us more information about the first century and what happened right before the destruction of the temple in 70 AD and thereafter. And what was published recently, and I have the link below to an article from Israel about these two coins that you see. The top coin is newer. You see both sides. It is from 134 to 135 Common Era, so almost 70 years after the destruction of the temple. And that is minted under the administration of Shimon Ben Kosibah, or Bar Kokhba, who was thought to be the Messiah. I think even the famous Rabbi Akiva, called him Mashiach, the Messiah, thinking that 70 years had passed since the temple had been destroyed. And just as God's punishment on Israel lasted for 70 years in the time of the Babylonian captivity, so too this group of Jews under Bar Kokhba thought that they too would be able to return to Jerusalem and claim it. So 134, 135, the lower coin, and you see both sides of it, date to 67, 68, right before the destruction of the temple. Now, both these coins were found in northeastern corner of what would have been Judea, about 20 miles north of Qumran. It's an exciting find because it shows that there was a Jewish presence during the Roman period and beyond the destruction of the temple. Jews were not completely displaced from the land of Israel, as we see here. Displaced from Jerusalem, yes, but they were planning to return here. And what we're going to do is just look a little bit at what we can discern in the writing from these coins. So the upper coin here is from 134, 135, and we're going to look at that. And then the one below is older by nearly 70 years. So what I want to show you here is the Bar Kokhba coin, or Bar Kokhba. On the left, you see that it has what is thought to be a lulav. So this here is thought to be a lulav for the celebration of Sukkot, which is a agricultural holiday with specific species of plants that are taken and put together in a bundle. And then on the right, you see what appears to be a harp or a lyre. So it's a musical instrument. You see this kind of shape here with the strings. And then it has the name Shimon, or Simon. And that, of course, points to who was thought to be the coming Jewish king, the Messiah, Bar Kokhba. So we'll look at that. And then the second one we're going to look at is the older one from right before the destruction of the temple in 70. It's hard to make out this side here, but we do see some Paleo-Hebrew used here. What I've done is rotate the images so that we can see them a little more clearly. The photo that I have here was published on the article that I've provided the link for below if you want to read about it. Okay, so we're going to look at the Hebrew here on the older of the two coins. This is the coin that dates to right before the destruction of the temple. Now they tell us it says, the scholars don't have the entire inscription here, but they know from other coins of the same time period that it says for the freedom of Zion, for the freedom of Zion. But all we have here is just the word Zion. So let me write it out here for you. So what you'll see, well, here, what I'll do first, I'll trace it so you can see. There's our tzadi, here's our yod, here's our vav, and then here's our nun. Remember, there's no final forms like there are with the what we call our Aramaic script. I'll erase that here, and then I'll write it again to the right. So the Paleo Hebrew, we have a tzadi, looks like this. Now these are idealized, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Basically something like this. And in Aramaic script, or what we call block Hebrew today, that would be a tzadi like this. Forgive my scribble here. Tzadi, yod, vav, and then nun sofit. And if we were to put, I'm not happy with my tzadi there. It's kind of squiggly. It would be a hirik, a tzi, and then a holem over the vav, tzion. Tzion. So it's the word Zion. And it's written in an idealized form of Paleo Hebrew. If I trace that one more time, there's our tzadi, here's our yod, here's our vav, and then our nun, Zion. And you can see this coin was stamped a little bit off kilter here, so we don't see the whole thing. Now, we're going to go now and look at the side of the coin from the Bar Kokhba period. So this is from the 130s that has the lyre, or the musical instrument here, what I think of as a harp of David. And you can see here, it's a pretty cool design. 3 strings and perhaps some sort of stand. I don't know. It's hard to see. I only have the same images here that are available online. But I do want to look at the Hebrew inscription. So what we see here is oops, let me get a color here. This is a shin. And then there's a mem here, and it's hard to make out. It's probably something like that. And then this might be part of an ayin. I'm not sure because it's broken off. And then we have some sort of vav over here, and then a nun sofit. So we can see that the nun of Shimon here looks just like the nun. If I zoom out, these 2 letters here are the same. If I zoom out, you can see them both. But let's go back in here, and let me go to my blue. What we've got here, again, in the Paleo Hebrew is something like a sheen, like that. Some sort of mem where we can't see it very clearly. There's an ayin, which is usually some sort of circle or tiny little triangle-looking thing. Some sort of vav. Now, the vav here doesn't look much like the earlier vav, and then a nun sofit. And what this is, again, like if I do my best to kind of write it in what we think of today as in Hebrew block, it's going to be a shin, mem, ayin, vav, nun. Shimon. So the name is Simon. What we probably think of as Simon. It kind of comes into English that way, Simon. Now, what are some other interesting points about this? Is that in this time, so we're looking at the 130s Common Era, or AD, approaching 70 years since the destruction of the temple, there were a group of Jews that were very intense with their desire to celebrate the feasts and to recapture Jerusalem from the Romans. under the leadership of Shimon Ben Kosibah, or also Shimon Bar Kokhba. And what we're going to see, or Bar Kokhba rather, which is a pun or a word play on a passage from the book of Numbers that says that the star will rise from Jacob. And so Kokhba is the Aramaic of Kokav, the word for star. But in any event, what I wanted to show you here is a little bit of a letter that survives. And this is from the same time frame as this coin. And this letter was from the cave of letters, it's called, which is south of Qumran. So the coin was found 20 miles north of Qumran. This cave is, I don't know, maybe 15 miles or so south of Qumran. And it had this and a number of other letters stashed there with some other things as well. But what I want to do is zoom in. It's possible that this is actually Simon Bar Kokhba or Shimon Bar Kokhba's handwriting. Or it could be dictated. We don't know. But what we do know is that the correspondence here, if you see, it's, ma'am, is that going to show up? It'll show up. Well, let me go back to a better color. I'll do the green. I think the bright green might show up better. Here's a mem, shin, mem, ayin, vav, nun, ben Kosibah. So now you see what I've done is I've tried to copy this bit right here. It says, Mi Shimon Ben Kosibah, from Simon Ben Kosibah. And then it says here, I can zoom in maybe a little bit. Yeshua. To Yeshua Ben Galgula, it continues under here, and to the men, etc. And then it says shalom. Right here it says shalom. It's partially broken off. But it's an epistle. It's a letter. Now, why is this worth pointing out? I'll get that centered for you. I did my best to transcribe it. So you see here's, oops. So here's our mem right there. We have a shin, another mem, ayin vav nun. So that's Mishimon. Oops, I deleted my nun sofit up there. There we go. Mishimon Ben. So notice he's using the final letter forms. So for example, nun sofit right here, and then the word Ben, nun sofit. Okay, so this is a different scribal set of scribal conventions than what's on the coin. The coin uses Paleo-Hebrew, as you can see, and the letter, the correspondence, and all the correspondence from the Cave of Letters are in what we call the Aramaic script. As a matter of fact, some of the letters are in Aramaic. This one is very Hebrew. It might have some Aramaic looking forms in the letter. I'm talking about language, not script here. They're all in the same script, which we would call an Aramaic script, but now it's becoming the Hebrew script by this time. And it does contrast, though, with the official script that is embedded in the coinage. So let me put it another way. Under the administration of Bar Kokhba, in anticipation of rallying a Jewish army and kicking Rome out and reclaiming Jerusalem for the rabbis, basically, because he has rabbinic endorsement, in the 130s, there are two registers of the use of language. Actually, you could say three. In the letters like this, we have the same script used for the letters, but we have two languages. We have Hebrew and Aramaic. So there's two registers there, just two different languages being used in the Bar Kokhba correspondence. But there's a third register, and that register is kind of that has the imperial aspirations, right? In order to take over the land. They are sending a signal of ancient legitimacy by using not the more recent adopted Aramaic alphabet for the Hebrew language, but they are using an idealized form of a script, of the Paleo-Hebrew script, which they do not use in their letters. They're not writing to each other using Paleo-Hebrew script. They're writing to each other using this Aramaic, the more recent and user-friendly Aramaic script. But the official kingly proclamation, right, even to have minted coins with your name on it, is a symbol of power, a symbol of authority, a symbol of kingdom. And that's what he wants. He wants to make a show that he has a kingdom with its own coinage, and his own name is on it. But his name on the coin is different than it is here in the epistle. In his letter, he just writes it in what we call the Aramaic or New Hebrew script. But remember, this is Hebrew. Ben Kosibah. Ben Kosibah. Aramaic, it would say Bar Kokhba or Bar Kokhba. Bar Kokhba, he doesn't call himself that, but he would call it at least Bar Kosibah would be Aramaic. So this is a distinctly Hebrew with the use of the Nun Sophites. Different, again, one more time, just to stress that difference. Different than the administrative signaling of authority and power and kingdom, whereby he lets everybody know, use these coins in my realm and have that bear my name, Shimon. And it's in a Paleo-Hebrew script. So that is what we call an ideological use of the Paleo-Hebrew script. It's to send a signal. He didn't have to do that, but it sends a signal that says, I am connected to the kingdom of David, to the ancient tribe of Judah, the house of David, and I am the legitimate king. So this is when we hear, like in the rabbinic writings, where Rabbi Akiva is said to have called this person, Shimon Bar Kosibah, the Messiah, the Mashiach. And of course, this was a failed revolt. They did not succeed at all. But we do here have a snapshot with this coin. At this point, they didn't know. They believed they would recapture Jerusalem. And this coin reflects the confidence and enthusiasm that they had, and the mustering of Jewish men to fight together under a leader considered the Messiah. And if we go back, we can kind of see both those coins together. In both cases, the 67 and in the 134, both those revolts, of course, failed. And this last week was the celebration of a day of fasting and a somber reflection, traditionally for reading the Book of Lamentations by Jeremiah, what's called Tish B'Av, a day of remembering the destruction of the temple. So I hope this little history lesson with some look at use of language and of coinage, talking about history, has been helpful for you. Shalom.